PCMF is Presbyterian Church Men Fellowship. And this idea of having a men organization was mooted in 1973.
And when we look at our families, we look at our church, we can see the great achievements men have done.
It is a time of evaluating where we've come from. It is a time of assessing ourselves where we are. It is a time where we are now making a halt so that we can look forward to where we are going.
We now have a very vibrant men fellowship.
Nitafanya kazi ya Bwana, akiniita nitaitika, akiniita nitaitika, akiniita nitaitika.
Founded in 1973 just as a small fellowship meant to bring the men of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa together, the Presbyterian Church Men's Fellowship (PCMF) can be traced in 4 eras of metamorphosis. Emanating from minute 1154 of the 1973 General Assembly, the Very Reverend Dr. John G. Gatu, now deceased, set the ball rolling in having a robust men's fellowship. This was necessitated by the fact that men, as per God's creation, were given the mantle of providing leadership and guidance not only to their families but to the church and society.
We know that they were created by God to be leaders, not only of the family, but also in the churches. But we discovered later on that men were not very keen to be leaders in the church. And it was of concern at times when we came to learn that.
There are 2 years we have to focus on, 1986 and 1987. Those years are very important because that's the time the very Reverend Dr. Gato was the session moderator of the parish, and he introduced men's fellowship. It happened that himself and the late Professor Samuel Kivisho, after attending a conference in Guatemala, found they had men's fellowship and came and introduced the same. It also happened that Dr. Gato went to South Africa, saw PCMF, and came with the constitution.
The very beginning from 1973, we note some of the congregations and some parishes started gathering men together. And we have good models of those beginnings, very humble beginnings. PCA St. Andrews is in record. PCA Motero in Karen is in record. PCA Umoja, where we are able now to trace the very first fellowship of men coming together.
In 1995, PCEA Mutero Church, then a congregation under Langata Parish, began holding committee meetings geared towards realizing a full PCMF committee.
In my reference to the minutes of the LCC at that time, the first mention of the formation of the committee was on 27th of January 1995. That's when the LCC allowed the formation of the committee. And it is not until 1995 that the committee was then formally launched with the patron, who then was the late John Wambogo Karaoke.
4 years later, in 1999, the first ever full member installation ceremony was held in the very same church, setting history to what will be a structure in the fellowship.
Why did this happen in Mutero? Mutero was not a very old congregation by standards, but it just happened that the new appointed director of and coordinator of PCMF, who was appointed, I think, in 1994, the very Reverend John G. Gatu, was a member of this parish and a member of PCA Mutero. And therefore, it was due to that fact that he himself had to find a place also where he could have a committee, a fellowship that would propel him to the national work that he was going to do, that he started encouraging members of his congregation and the parish to start that committee. And it was then that we started, and our first chairman was Josephat Gizashori. The first patron was John Karaoke. Treasurer was Waigoro Karaoke, and Kirago was assistant secretary. It is not until later on that these activities of the PCMF came into light, but we started working, and in 1997 or thereabout, we requested that November be made the special month for the celebration of PCMF activities. And it seems that that request has remained, that we had requested it to the parish, but later on became the signature month for the PCMF. And I think it was also connected with the fact that November for us at that time maybe was nearing the time when we were going to find the final ceremony of giving the badges and the ties that was to come later in the beginning of 99.
I became a member of the PCMF way back in 1996, and was dedicated to have a badge 1999. The following year we got our uniform, and I've been a very active member of the PCMF, and until I became a coordinator in Central Region for 14 years, where I coordinated over 100 parishes and a few outreaches and then areas. We used to cover Kiambu and Muranga counties, and also Narok and Garissa were also part of our areas.
I became the regional chairman of Nairobi region, and after 1 year I was elected as the national chairman. And I went on with, worked with Dr. Kibisho, who was the main director then, and then he handed over to Reverend Kania, who passed away, until when he became Secretary General. I worked with Kaira when he was a parish minister, so I knew him for that time, and we did quite a lot of work with him. We were able to steer the PCMF from where we found it in 2006 to a great level. Before, there were no regional coordinators at the region, but Reverend Kevicho introduced the system of having coordinators in each region. That is Nairobi, Rift Valley, Eastern, Central, and Western. During those years, it took a lot of persuasion, even men, to do to come and agree to join the PCMF. After they realized that it was a good group, because our founders of the PCMF, the late Reverend John Gatu, so that in the church, men had no forum. They were just coming, bring their wives and the children at the gate, they drop them, and then they go home. Because they have no group, like young women guild, church school, brigade, and whatever, they did not have. But once the men got started, we had a lot of persuasive, and we were able to join PCMF.
The then Secretary General decided, together with the past moderator, the late, maybe we can rent an office opposite, that is at YMCA, so that we can be able to establish the office and bring more men together. The steering committee found it fit. Maybe we can introduce something different so that the department can get funds to run the department. So they got an idea of printing founders' members' certificates, and they were going at different levels. There was for the golden certificate was going at 50,000, diamond 40,000, silver certificate at 20,000, ordinary certificate 10,000, and normal was to be determined by the local committee. Actually, one man could come for and buy for that 50,000 certificate, only to make the department run.
Following a successful member installation and a functional structure, there arose need for identity that informed a conversation around a formal uniform.
Here I stand with Elder Douglas, who has the very first tie, which was made by Umoja Fellowship, PCA Umoja, and the first badge. And later, this became a challenge to the first national coordinator or director of PCMF, very Reverend Dr. John Gato, who finally gathered all the leaders of the national team, meeting in YMCA next to the PC head office, and they charted the way for a standard uniform. Now the tie Elder Dishon is wearing, and the official badge, and also the brazier. In fact, Elder Douglas can say what kind of a suit they were wearing first. It was a blue suit. Yeah.
The kind of attire we were using by then, it was a blue as Umoja PCA Men Fellowship. Even what is in the picture here is what we are wearing before. It was changed by the national committee. This is our former attire. We were proud of it.
(1978) is when it was noted the men fellowship cannot function really without some guidelines, and so the General Assembly, again through the business committee, after meeting in Pwani, agreed men should champion now with a committee to formulate a constitution. And in 1994 is when the first constitution to guide the PCMF was tabled, accepted for trial.
And so he picked 10 of us from St. Andrews. The names are there, some people that were there in the team, like David Moravi and myself, Honorable Joseph Kamere, David Joroge, Professor Christopher Karowe. All those people, 10 of us, were charged with the responsibility of working through it. And so we drafted the first constitution with the 12 objectives, 6 of them towards God, 6 of them towards wives and families and the church. And it was really exciting that we started that way. We drafted that constitution and then handed it over so that it can continue.
In 2002, Reverend Dr. Charles Kibicho succeeded the past moderator, the Very Reverend Dr. John G. Gatu, as the national coordinator of the Men's Fellowship. His role was to build upon the foundation set by his predecessor, who had already done a great job in ensuring proper structures were in place. Dr. Kibicho embarked on a journey of expanding the fellowship, moving across East Africa, teaching, admitting, and commissioning members into the Presbyterian Church Men's Fellowship.
When the time comes, your favor will be shown. When the time comes, there is a time that comes. It may not be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be next month, but according to God, time comes. So when the time comes, your favor will come to you. Wait upon that.
He is anchored in the PCMF history books for reminding men of their calling as priests, prophets, providers, protectors, preservers, and peacemakers. After a 10-year reign of Reverend Dr. Charles Kibicho, the former Secretary General, the late Peter Kania, took over the docket in 2012. Amongst his core endeavors were issues to do with a wholesome man as the leader and champion for change.
So we are people that are called within a bigger fraternity, a bigger family. Actually, if I would follow my Kikuyu traditional religion, there are many things I'm not supposed to do with some people within the Kikuyus, and also many things I cannot do with people that from other communities. It is only in Christianity everybody becomes moro na mwarwaidha wito. Bwana asifiwe. So that when I meet a Luo, I hug them. I don't hug a Luo, I'm hugging a brother in Christ.
The late Kania will forever be remembered for his astute war against retrogressive cultural practices and his full-throttle passion for the boy child.
The wife inheritance, which is happening also in some of our African Kenyan communities. The issue of polygamy, which is being promoted now. And there are so many things that are happening, and men are being trained to become tough, and one of the way to become tough is to have a woman here, a woman there. And some of them, because of the many factors, do not do it openly. Lakini wanaficha wanawake pale, wanaficha mwingine pale, wanaficha mwingine pale. The spirit of polygamy, whether direct or indirect, it is not progressive.
In 2015, when the late Reverend Peter Kania successfully contested for the office of the Secretary General of the 22nd General Assembly, Reverend Henry G. Kaira took over the leadership of the PCMF department. Reverend Kaira's goal was to accelerate the growth and expansion of the fellowship. Hence, he embarked on major recruitment drives across parishes and capacity building of the leaders, which in return led to the rapid numerical, spiritual, and physical growth.
I'm glad to thank God that the past nearly 8 years I've been in this office, really working to see that with the leadership of the PCMF, in the earlier dispensation when we used to have the Presbyterians, we have done quite a lot in our 5 regions, recruiting men and greatly also encouraging the YPCMF, the younger men, the young and married men. In fact, in the Constitution, in page number 4, on page number 7, we have the Junior Fellowship, which we now call the YPCMF. And it is tagged under Article 8.85 that the fellowship would comprise of young and married men who desire to join the fellowship. And later when they become young parents, young fathers, they continue on. And they are entitled even to have their occasional meetings and time to discuss matters affecting younger men.
In his tenure so far, more young and married men have joined the YPCMF, with his other focus being on mentorship through the rites of passage for boys and development of working curriculums.
We have come up with manuals to help us now to do mentorship, like this mentorship manual through the rite of passage, and we noted we cannot work alone. We need synergy through working with the Women's Guild, the youth, the children ministry, and so the next manuals will be very compounded, carrying the role of the stakeholders, right from the parents through the mentors and even the young men and the young girls moving to be responsible young adults.